in the quiet corners of Riverside Air Base, there was a janitor named Kesha Davis. Most people barely noticed her. She wore standard issue overalls, carried a mop bucket, and made a habit of avoiding eye contact. Some mistook her silence for submission. Others, like Captain Bradley Thompson, mistook it for stupidity. But what none of them knew, what none of them even imagined, was that Kesha Davis wasn't born to clean floors. She was born to fly. 8 years earlier, the world had known her by a different name. Captain Kesha Phoenix Williams, one of the most talented fighter pilots in the U.S. Air Force. That is, until a whisper campaign, forged documents, and a betrayal from within her own command forced her out. No court-martial, no formal charges, just silence. And suddenly, the rising star of American aviation vanished, erased like chalk on a war board. Beat! Changed tone slightly more investigative. No one ever asked what happened to her. They assumed she failed. Or worse, they assumed she deserved to disappear. But she didn't vanish. She hid. And for 8 long years, she scrubbed toilets, emptied trash cans, and walked past officers who had once saluted her. She kept her head down. She waited, and she listened, because Phoenix Williams was no longer just a pilot. She had become a witness. Base life imagery. Narration continues. Every day, Captain Thompson walked past her without acknowledgement. He laughed with his fellow officers about how diversity hires were ruining the Air Force. He complained loudly about how standards were being lowered, often while Kesha cleaned the coffee spill from his desk or changed the toilet paper in his office restroom. But Kesha said nothing. She had nothing to prove anymore, at least not to him. Cut to voiceover from Thompson, mocking tone. You know, I bet even the janitor thinks she could fly one of these. Thompson once joked during an air show prep meeting. Maybe next year we'll give her a broom with wings. The room had erupted in laughter. What they didn't know, what Thompson would soon discover, is that sometimes the broom you're laughing at is really a blade in disguise. Present day air show announcement. It was the week of the base's most public event, the Riverside Air Show, a televised event. Crowds, reporters, high-ranking officers, the whole country watching. Thompson had a bright idea. Let's show the public how complex aviation really is, he said. We'll make a mock challenge. Pick a random civilian. Throw them in the cockpit. Let them see just how impossible it is. Smug grin, laughter, and then the moment. He looked directly at Kesha. What about the janitor? He smirked. Think you can fly an F-16, sweetheart? The room laughed again, but Kesha didn't. She looked at Thompson, not with anger, not with fear, but with the quiet power of someone who had nothing left to lose. She simply said, If that's an order, sir, I'll do my best. Thompson, caught off guard, tried to walk it back. Wait, are you serious? Of course not, he chuckled. She probably thinks an aileron is a snack food. But Colonel Arthur Mitchell, a man who'd served for 30 years and had seen enough smug officers his day, narrowed his eyes. Actually, I am curious, he said. Ms. Davis, if you're willing, we'll give you the simulator test. Fair and square. What happened next was unsettling. In the flight simulator, Kesha didn't just perform well. She executed maneuvers most active-duty pilots couldn't master. Inverted turns, tight barrel rolls, precision landings in crosswind conditions. She didn't hesitate. Her hands moved with muscle memory, not guesswork. Mitchell stared at the screen. Thompson's jaw dropped. The room had gone silent. Where did you learn that? Mitchell asked quietly. Kesha turned her head, met his eyes, and answered simply, I used to fly. Scene fades into darkness, fade into old footage. Deep in an archive, forgotten by most, were news clips from nearly a decade ago. Captain Kesha Phoenix Williams, known for her daring aerial maneuvers and perfect combat record, decorated pilot with multiple commendations, quietly removed from duty after allegations of insubordination. No charges ever filed. Some say the incident was politically motivated. Sources close to Williams say she was set up. Back to base, present time. Mitchell pulled up her old file, locked under restricted access. Top clearance required. When he finally opened it, he muttered under his breath, "My God, Phoenix Williams." He turned toward the window, where Kesha Davis, the janitor, was now standing next to an F-16. Silent. Ready. "This proves nothing," he barked. "Just because she can fly a sim doesn't mean she's military material. She's just a janitor." "No, Thompson. She's not just a janitor. She's the ghost your system buried. She's the flame your arrogance tried to smother. She's the Phoenix. And you just gave her wings again." When Colonel Mitchell gave the order, the entire base paused. "Prepare the F-16 for demonstration. Davis is cleared for flight." There was a beat of silence. A few stunned murmurs. "The janitor?" someone whispered. "She's going to fly today?" "Yes, because once upon a time, she was Phoenix Williams. And today, that name would rise again." Hangar, mechanics scrambling, confusion. Technicians rushed to prep the aircraft. Some fumbled, unsure if this was a prank. But when they saw the fire in Mitchell's eyes, they obeyed. Full inspection. "Fuel her up. Get her sky ready. This isn't a joke." Captain Thompson, pale and sweating, followed Mitchell outside. "Sir, this is insane," he blurted. "We can't let her." Mitchell turned. "Can't let her what, Captain? Prove that she's better than you? Because from where I'm standing, she already has." By noon, word had spread. Crowds gathered around the tarmac. Journalists adjusted cameras. Drones hovered for aerial shots. Foster, the young staffer who had casually filmed the simulator run, was now live streaming to social media. "You guys aren't going to believe this," he said, voice trembling. "They're letting the janitor fly. And she's not just anyone. She's Phoenix Williams." Kesha stood beside the fighter jet, helmet in hand, flight suit zipped. It had been 8 years since she last touched the controls of a military jet, but her body remembered. Every breath, every click of a buckle, every glance at the checklist. It all came back. The plane wasn't a machine to her. It was a memory, a promise, a weapon, a stage. And today, she would write her name across the sky. Cut to cockpit. She climbs in. HUD lights up. Colonel Mitchell's voice crackled through the headset. "Griffin 07, you are clear for unrestricted aerial demonstration. Show them what it means to fly with honor." The jet rolled down the runway. People expected a cautious start, a basic liftoff, a gentle turn. What they got was something else entirely. 3 seconds in, Kesha was airborne. 5 seconds in, she turned vertically, climbing like a rocket. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Thompson, watching from the ground, whispered, "That's impossible." But it wasn't impossible. It was legendary. And it was only the beginning. She's executing a Cobra maneuver. That's not even standard protocol. Only elite Russian pilots use that. She just stopped in midair and pulled the nose vertical, then leveled it. I haven't seen that since Phoenix Williams. Because it was Phoenix Williams. And now no one could deny it. She was no longer just flying. She was painting in the sky. Inverted loops. High G turns. Low passes that made the audience duck instinctively. Her control was absolute. Her grace? Unmatched. Every move said, "You tried to erase me, but I never left." Back on the ground, chaos for Thompson. Captain Thompson gripped a radio with trembling hands. "Davis, this is a direct order. Return to base immediately." The answer came back, clear, steady, devastating. "Negative, Captain. You wanted a demonstration. I'm giving you one." Mitchell didn't stop her. He stood in the control tower, arms crossed, eyes glassy with awe. Let her fly. For 10 glorious minutes, the sky belonged to Phoenix. And when she climbed to 15,000 feet and dove in a formation that spelled the word Phoenix in contrails across the air, even the most cynical officers applauded. Thompson turned green, and then white. He had just humiliated himself on live feed. And worse, he had reeled a legend. Kesha brought the jet home with perfect precision. Touchdown so gentle, it looked like the plane chose to land on its own. The canopy lifted. She took off her helmet. The cameras zoomed in. Eyes of fire. Face of calm. Dignity wrapped in silence. The crowd burst into cheers. But Kesha didn't smile. Not yet, because her story wasn't over. Thompson tried one last desperate move. This proves nothing. She could have learned all that in secret. She's still just... Mitchell's voice boomed over the loudspeakers. Captain Thompson, you might want to check your phone. Thompson's screen exploded with notifications. Pentagon, CNN, Military Command, trending worldwide. Hashtag Phoenix Janitor. 50 million views. Congratulations, Captain. You just became the face of military humiliation. Kesha stepping onto the tarmac. Silent crowd watches. She looked out across hundreds of faces. Some ashamed, some stunned, some inspired. Then she spoke. For 8 years, I cleaned the bathrooms where officers like Captain Thompson mocked women like me. I heard every joke, every insult, every time someone said people like me didn't belong in a cockpit. But today I prove that skill has no gender, and dignity needs no permission. The crowd was dead silent. Then an old mechanic stepped forward, tears in his eyes. Phoenix Williams, he whispered, you were the best we ever had, and we let them bury you. Not anymore, because Phoenix wasn't buried. She was resurrected. As the last echoes of the crowd faded, and the engines cooled, the real reckoning began. Kesha stood before hundreds on the tarmac, still in her flight suit, her helmet under her arm, face unshaken. But then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a flash drive, the size of a thumb, the weight of 8 years of silence, and the power to bring empires crashing down. There's one last thing I need to do, she said, voice steady. For 8 years, I collected evidence about the conspiracy that destroyed my name, revoked my wings, and buried my identity. Drive glinting in sunlight. Inside this is the truth about General Morrison, the forged reports, the falsified testimony, the money trail. Colonel Mitchell stepped forward, suddenly serious. What kind of evidence? Everything, she answered. Deathbed confessions, audio recordings, bank accounts traced to shell companies, and documents proving that the Thompson family helped sell American weapons to enemy factions. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Cameras zoomed in. Reporters whispered frantic updates to their teams. Thompson, still kneeling on the tarmac, looked up, white as chalk. She's lying, he stammered. You can't believe this. But Mitchell had already taken the drive from her hand. Captain Thompson, he said quietly, you might want to call a lawyer. Within 24 hours, the military launched a federal investigation. 72 hours later, the Thompson family's assets were frozen. General Morrison was arrested in a joint military federal raid. Dozens of high-ranking officers were charged with conspiracy, fraud, and treason. And Bradley Thompson? He was caught attempting to destroy evidence in his father's study, charged with obstruction of justice, and paraded out of his mansion in handcuffs. National headlines flashing across screen. Military whistleblower ends years of corruption. Hashtag Phoenix Janitor drives nationwide reform. Hero or ghost? The return of Phoenix Williams. Foster, the staffer who had casually live-streamed the simulator run, was now a national media figure. He appeared on every major network. I thought I was filming a prank, he told CNN. But I ended up witnessing the rebirth of a legend. I watched the Air Force get a new heart. 3 months later, office with modern decor, windows overlooking a runway. Kesha sat at a new desk. Behind her, a wall-sized photograph. Her, stepping out of the F-16, helmet under arm, flame-lit sky behind her. The plaque on the door read, Director Kesha Phoenix Williams, Phoenix Aviation Academy. She had turned her silence into an institution, a flight school, a sanctuary, a revolution. Assistant Amanda entering office. Director Williams? We got 50 more applications today. 1 from Alaska, 2 from Puerto Rico. Kesha smiled, watching a group of teens train on the flight simulator outside her office window. You know what the difference is between privilege and competence, Amanda? What is it, Director? Privilege fears competition. Competence invites it. The Phoenix Academy wasn't just another flight school. It was a magnet for students who had been rejected, overlooked, underestimated. Women, first-generation students, veterans, former janitors, even montage students in training. They flew with fire. They studied with obsession. And they spoke the name Phoenix with reverence. Kesha wasn't just a teacher now. She was the blueprint. And what of Captain Bradley Thompson? The golden boy who once mocked a janitor for dreaming too high? His fall was swift and absolute. His family's wealth? Gone. His name? A punchline. His clearance? Revoked. His military career? Terminated. He now occupied a 12-by-8 cell in a military prison. His wife filed for divorce. His kids? Changed their last name. Every time the guards walked by his cell, the TV outside blared another Phoenix Academy success story. Poetic justice. Delivered on wings. General Mitchell, now promoted. Mitchell visited the academy monthly. Once skeptical, now proud. "Phoenix," he said one day, walking beside her as students lined up for simulator drills. "You could have had any command in the Air Force. Why build this?" She paused, looked around. Because, General, the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's building something they could never create. A place where skill matters more than bloodline. Where nobody gets judged by the uniform they wear or don't. Kesha's story began in betrayal, but it ended in transformation. Her academy sparked changes far beyond its walls. The Air Force created new protocols for protecting whistleblowers. Diversity investigations expanded. And the Thompson case? It became required reading at every military academy in the country. Kesha on a national interview. "You know what my biggest mistake was?" she asked the interviewer. "For years, I thought I lost my identity when I lost my rank. But real identity, the kind that matters, can't be taken by force. It can only be surrendered. And I never surrendered." Prison. Thompson watched his interview from his cell. He turned away from the screen. But the word stayed with him. Because now, the janitor he once humiliated was training the next generation of elite pilots. And he was just another footnote. 1 year after she stepped into the cockpit for the first time in 8 years, Kesha Phoenix, Williams stood again before the nation. This time, wearing full dress uniform. A row of medals glinted on her chest. A crowd of thousands watched in silence. And pinned to her lapel, just below her flight wings, was the highest military recognition in the country, the Congressional Medal of Honor, for distinguished service, unmatched bravery, and the pursuit of justice in the face of overwhelming odds. Kesha approaching the podium. She didn't need a written speech. She had been rehearsing this moment since the day they stripped her of her name. "For 8 years, they told me I was just a janitor," she began. "I chose to be the best janitor I could be while keeping alive the pilot I've always been. Today, I accept this not just for myself, but for everyone who's ever been silenced, underestimated, or told they were less than." The audience erupted, but her face remained calm, because this moment wasn't about applause. It was about purpose. The Phoenix Aviation Academy became a national phenomenon. Its slogan? Fly with honor. Rise with purpose. In its first year, over 5,000 applications. Cadets from 42 states and 7 territories. Graduates recruited directly into military and aerospace programs. They weren't just learning how to fly. They were learning how to lead, how to survive, how to fight back without violence, using excellence as their sword. Classroom. Kesha addressing new recruits. "Revenge," she told her students, "isn't doing to others what they did to you. It's becoming so successful, they regret ever doubting you." The Academy's success forced traditional military institutions to change. Recruitment criteria were revised. Racial and gender-biased training became mandatory. And a new department was founded within the Air Force. The Phoenix Division, specializing in talent recovery, whistleblower protection, and ethical aviation practices. General Mitchell, now speaking at a ceremony. Phoenix Williams didn't just rewrite the rules. She rewrote the culture. We'll be learning from her for generations. Bradley Thompson, meanwhile, served his sentence quietly in a military prison. His crimes were no longer headline news. Now, his name only appeared as a footnote in leadership training courses labeled, "How Corruption Undermines National Security." He watched news of the Phoenix Academy from his cell, but there were no interviews for him, no legacy to preserve, no redemption arc waiting. Interview with Foster, now an award-winning filmmaker. "I used to make prank videos," Foster said, smiling. "But that day on the base changed everything. I saw what real power looks like, not in who commands a room, but who transforms it." His documentary, The Phoenix Protocol, won 3 journalism awards and was picked up for educational distribution. The Academy anniversary celebration underway. The first Phoenix graduates were now instructors themselves. One had become the youngest test pilot at NASA. Another was flying humanitarian missions in conflict zones. A third had joined Congress, advocating for veterans and education reform. All of them had one thing in common. They had been told no by the old world, and yes by Phoenix. Kesha in her office, looking out the window. Amanda, her longtime assistant, entered with another report. "Director, we've just passed 100,000 total flight hours logged. Also, a reporter from Time wants an exclusive, and the Secretary of Defense wants to tour the campus next month." Kesha nodded quietly. The fame, the accolades, they were never the goal. The real victory was watching someone walk in broken and leave whole. Kesha's transformation from janitor to national icon wasn't just a story of comeback. It was a blueprint for rising. It proved that identity is never about titles, uniforms, or what's printed on your badge. It's about what you carry in silence, until a moment comes to speak. "True identity," she once said, "can't be taken away by rank or ridicule. It can only be given up. And I never gave mine up." Wall at the Phoenix Academy. Names of cadets etched into a mural shaped like a rising bird. At the top, in gold lettering. "To fly with honor is to rise with purpose." Phoenix Williams. So the next time someone underestimates you, or mocks your dream, or reduces your worth to a label, remember her story. The janitor who turned shame into strength. The pilot who rose from ashes. The woman who didn't just return. She rebuilt the runway for everyone else to fly.